We're ready to begin. If everyone can find their seats, please.
Chair, can you give me one moment? There's some coordination issues. 1 second. Thank you, Chair, for that moment. We can continue.
Good afternoon, everyone. The July 2025 SANDAG Public Safety Committee meeting is called to order. I'd like to ask our interpreter to walk us through how to access our interpretation services for today's meeting. Please go ahead.
Announcement from interpreter. To use the interpretation feature, please scroll to the bottom of the Zoom screen where the meeting scrolls are. Click on the interpretation icon, the world, and select English as your language. If you are joining through Zoom, mobile apps, cell phone, tablet, etc., please press the ellipsis 3 dots, then interpretation, and then choose your language. Finally, click on mute original audio to not hear the original Spanish in the background. Headsets are available for interpretation. If you are in the meeting room, please check out the headset from the receptionist in the lobby. Buenas tardes, aviso por parte del intérprete. Para hacer el uso de interpretación, favor de desplazarse a la parte inferior de la pantalla de Zoom, donde aparecen los controles. Haga clic en el icono de interpretación, globo terráqueo, y seleccione Spanish, español. Si está utilizando la aplicación móvil de Zoom, celular, tableta, etc., presione los puntos suspensivos, 3 puntos, luego interpretación, y luego el idioma. Si no desea escuchar el audio original en inglés en el fondo, por favor seleccione Mute Original Language, silenciar audio original. Contamos con auriculares para servicio de interpretación si se encuentra en la sala de la reunión. Favor de pedir los auriculares con la recepcionista en el vestíbulo. Gracias. Thank you.
Thank you. I'd like to take a moment to acknowledge the land we call home. The tribal nations of the San Diego region has historically faced injustices. We acknowledge the harmony that existed between the land, nature, and its original peoples who have since endured displacement, persecution, and systemic oppression. We pay our respect to the unceded territory and homelands of the 18 tribal nations in our region, the most in any county in the United States. From 4 cultural groups, the Kumeyaay, Digueño, Luiseño, and Cupeño, and the Cahuilla. This land has nourished, healed, protected, and embraced them for many generations in a relationship of balance and harmony. As members of the SANDAG Argus community, we acknowledge this legacy. We aspire to learn from indigenous traditional knowledge and experiences in undoing the injustices of the past. Now, will you please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance? Sure. Right hand over your heart. Ready? Begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Before we jump into the meeting, I'll ask our clerk to confirm that we have a quorum. Cami?
Hi, Chair. Yes, we have quorum with the members present.
Excellent. We'll start today with non-agenda public and member comments. For public speaker information, all items will have 1 minute today for public comment. Cami, do we have any public speakers?
Yes, we have 3 in-person and 2 online. We will start with our in-person speakers first and then move to our online. When I call your name, please come to the microphone. Cesar Javier. Cesar will be followed by Parita.
Please greet everyone. Come on. Okay. Good afternoon. Okay.
I didn't know.
Yeah.
Counts.
Yes. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Electric kilns and fuel-fired kilns are used to heat the battery of the desired firing temperature. The most common type are the electric kilns. Heating elements heat the kiln as electric current passes through the coils. The temperature rises until the kiln is shut off. Fuel-fired kilns are heated by burning gas, natural or propane. Oil, wood, coke, charcoal, or other materials. Propane gas or natural gas is used most often. These kilns are either
Thank you, Parita. Your time has
located-
expired. We'll now go on to Caesar.
Cesar, we are hurt. Since 2021, June 13, we made the formal report of this. And now, 2025, the city of San Diego, core city, has never thought of a single moment to give or offer a solution. This is public safety. This is environmental injustice. This is fire risks. This is community neighborhood issue. This is our humble community in a humble map since 2021. These are the actors. Oh, here, very good. The king of contractors, Sir Foster, chief of staff then, and then he was elected District 4 councilor, supported.
Thank you, Caesar.
By
Your time has
Monco-
expired. We'll now welcome Blair Beekman to the microphone.
Hi, thank you, Blair Beekman. Thanks for the meeting today. You're going to have items talking about ARGIS issues. I mentioned here many times, I can't thank you enough that you made it a regular process to talk about ARGIS data collection and its issues for the past few months here. And it's been, I think, a really important cause and purpose. Thank you. I know the city of San Diego, they have to seriously redress their current ALPR use, how that data collection is then shared. We can be developing data collection better practices and how to address and limit technology use overall. We're finding our best practices out of this new administration. Thank you for that effort. I hope other cities in the county are considering such ideas and how to really consider our future of tech as minimal use practices can do the same amount of public safety work as a plethora of tech. It's learning to figure that out. Good luck how we can be doing it. Thank you.
Thank you, Blair. We'll now move to our online speakers. Andrea Ebbing, you may speak and you'll be followed by phone number ending in 731. Andrea?
Hi, my name is Andrea, and I wanted to say that the biggest threat to our public safety and our community by far is the corruption taking place right now in San Diego. I would say this is a top-down issue. Certainly, you might think it starts at Todd Gloria's office, but it actually starts in San Diego District Attorney Summer Stephan's office. She's the gatekeeper of all good and evil. completely and totally focused only on retail theft. My children were abducted from San Diego. I was almost murdered. And for 3 years, as I was reporting the opioid distribution ring, body brokering, insurance fraud that was taking place at the hands of my ex, who is now a county contracted rehab owner, the city, the DA's office, everyone just dismissed felony strangulation, child abduction, every single thing that I was reporting, and gave him $3.4 million instead. And the reason they did that is to keep him in place because he gives kickbacks for every defendant placed in diversion programs, creating the homeless crisis. Thank you.
Thank you, Andrea. Phone number ending in 731, you may go ahead.
Former Police Chief David Nislight once hammered on the importance of following the process and laws when implementing ALPRs. Current Police Chief Scott Wall threw that out the window when he used last year's pride as an excuse to not follow legal process. What local insiders tipping off both activists and the media to when and where ICE operations are going to occur? The media even had the audacity to ask a gang member if they're being treated right. How about asking their victims if they're all right? When is the federal government going to arrest communists like Sean Alo for trying to impede federal agents from doing their job? These anti-American idiots need to stop creating sanctuaries of crime and a California confederacy of communism. And the child slave labor on pot farms where 10,000 of human trafficking profits have been funneled to Newsom's campaign. Is that why Democrats and Republicans both want illegals picking crops? Just like the affordable housing scam in National City, it's all benefiting corrupt political union men candidates. From Catherine to Todd to Paloma to Matthew to likely Jose and many more. I'm going to include Crook Henry down there. He should be removed. There's your 1 minute.
Thank you. And that concludes our public comments.
Thank you. Next, do we have any non-agenda member comments? This is an opportunity for agency announcements or information to be shared. These are, again, not agendized items.
Chair Musgrove.
Yes, Chief.
I have an update on the Chiefs and Sheriffs Management Committee.
Thank you, please.
All right. Good afternoon, Chair Musgrove and fellow board members. The Chiefs and Sheriffs Management Committee convened in June, where we received several important updates relevant to the region. ARGIS provided an overview of current initiatives, including progress on system enhancements, ongoing agency collaboration efforts, and regional technology projects. We also had the opportunity to preview the regional public safety budget update, which Dr. Rodriguez will be presenting in more detail here today. A key focus of the meeting was a briefing on the ongoing California Incident-Based Reporting System, or CYBERS, challenges. Director Ray and Principal Analyst Caroline Stevens shared recent developments and highlighted the potential operational impacts of recent reporting issues. This topic will be expanded upon later in today's agenda for further discussion. The Chiefs and Sheriffs Management Committee did not meet in July due to Independence Day and will remain dark through August. We look forward to reconvening in September to continue addressing public safety priorities across the region.
Thank you, Chief. Any other comments, non-agendized items? Okay.
Yes.
Yes. Director Ray.
Just two items really quickly. One is that I'm sorry, were you going to speak? No, okay. A question was asked a couple of meetings ago. I was here and I made the statement that our goal, ARGIS's goal, is to put the right information to the, can you hear me? The right information to the right people at the right time. And then a question was asked, how do you know you're giving the right information to the right people at the right time? And I thought that is a great question. It's a great question. So I'd like to answer that today in about 2.5, 3 minutes in that area, if that's okay.
You have the floor.
Thank you. On our public website, anybody in the world that has a computer can go to our public website and you can access information regarding crime mapping or data sharing, policies and procedures. There's all kinds of information on there for the public. But on our private website for our customers only, and that's 65 state, local, and federal investigative agencies, it is much more restrictive. You just can't get on there. There's a process you have to go through. You have to pass a law enforcement background, federal, state, local, before you can actually access. And I'm going to talk about that process, but I want to talk about considering the right time. When we say we deliver the right information at the right time is on demand. When our officers, agents are out in the field and they have a specific question, and they may be involved with a group of people, they may be in a dynamic situation, or they may have lots of time to investigate. But when they hit the query, push the button, enter, our applications are designed to respond immediately. so they get the information that they ask for. And when you ask, what's the right information? Well, if someone is looking for information on a vehicle or on a location, criminal history, a case, whatever it may be, our applications are designed to respond specifically to the request. So if someone's asking for a history on a vehicle or history of a location or history of an individual, they can make the search and they get that information back. So I believe we always provide the right information at the right time. It's upon demand. The harder part is, how do you say, do we know that we're giving the right information to the right person? And that's what I'd like to tell you about the background process that law enforcement folks have to go through, because I believe that our law enforcement agencies are working incredibly hard to hire the right people and then to keep them trained on a regular basis. So to be a peace officer, I'm just going to talk about local law enforcement right now. To be a peace officer, everybody has to pass Peace Officer Standards and Training, or POST. It's a state exam. It's an entry-level test battery exam. It's created, administered, and graded by the state of California. And if you can pass this written exam that the state administers and grades, then you get to go into a law enforcement background process. The first part of a background process, and I want to tell you, all this information is available online. If you're interested in researching this, you can go California Law Enforcement Background. You can search that and the information will come right on up. But the first thing you have to do is complete a personal history statement. That statement starts off at 33 pages and it discusses areas related to your personal information, relatives and references, education, residence history, experience in employment, military experience, financial, legal, motor vehicle, and other topics. And what the people say is all investigated for truthfulness by the background investigators. The background process also includes a criminal records check, a driving records check, local law enforcement agency records checks, credit records checks, education verification, employment eligibility and age verification, military history check, employment history check, and references and social media checks by the background investigators. And I should say the background check can go anywhere from 2 to 4 to 6 months, depending on the amount of information that people are looking. The process also includes a 10 post-dimension evaluation required to be focused on areas related to moral character, handling stress, work habits, interactions with others, and intellectually based abilities. And those 10 areas are here. It's integrity, it's impulse control and attention to safety, it's substance abuse and other risk-taking behavior, it's stress tolerance, it's confronting and overcoming problems, obstacles, and adversity, it's conscientiousness, it's interpersonal skills, it's decision-making and judgment, learning ability, and communication skills. And these 10 areas have to be evaluated by the background investigators and all the people involved in that process. And if you pass all of that, then you have to do a truth verification. And the truth verification exam by a licensed professional is either a voice stress test or a polygraph examination, and based on the information that has been investigated already there. And if you pass that, then you have to go through a medical examination. And if you pass that, then you have to go to a psychological examination, which includes a written exam that's graded and reviewed by a licensed professional, I should say a licensed doctor, and then an in-person interview with a licensed doctor to make sure, or to evaluate you to see if you're fit. So I believe that the law enforcement agencies initially, when they hire somebody, are doing a very good job to make sure that we have people that would follow the rules, follow the laws, make great decisions, and help keep the public safe. And these are the people that are qualified once they're employed to access their information. But it doesn't stop there. Once you graduate from an academy, then you go through your agency training. And the agency training could go anywhere from 2 to 6 months. And the probation period can be anywhere from 1 to 1.5 years, where you receive daily, weekly, monthly, and yearly trainings on many different areas, including laws. And according to those laws, every year, people have to pass a CLETS, California Law Enforcement Telecommunications exam, and a CJIS, Criminal Justice Information System exam, to make sure that you're not violating the rules. And then you test every year to make sure. So you're trained on those rules every year. The processes on information sharing, what can be shared, what can't be shared, when it can be shared, how you use that, and you recertify every year. And if you fail to certify, then you lose your access and then you can access your information. So I believe when it comes, the right time is when somebody asks. The right information is what people are asking for. And the right person, I believe our agents are doing the best they can to prepare people to operate. Now, do mistakes happen? Sure they do, because we're all humans. But for the most part, we trust that the agencies are doing a great job, and we share. And then there's policies in place in case there's a problem. We have state, federal, local audits on the systems that we have. Like for us, California Department of Justice audits ARGIS and ARGIS as users. We also have internal affairs investigations. We have review board investigations. So there's many avenues for someone. If someone is accused or thought to be doing something bad, there's an investigative part. So there's the training that happens initially to get the right person, the training to use the applications, and then there's the oversight, review, and supervision that occurs. So I think we're doing the best we can, and I just wanted to share that information with you. Would be happy to talk about that at length after the meeting or whenever, if anybody want to talk about that. But thanks for letting me share that, sir.
Thank you, Director Ray. Any other comments, questions? Okay, hand it over to Grace Muno for a SANDAG update.
Good afternoon, Chair, Vice Chair, and PSC members. My name is Grace Mino. I'm your Senior Director of Data Science and Business Information and Technology Services. I'm here in place for our CEO, Mario Orso, who couldn't be here today. But some agency updates, exciting news. I don't want to steal Tony Ray's thunder, but ARGIS is now fully staffed for the first time in 8 years, and he'll go into more detail when he gives his update. SANDAG is also changing to a new agenda management system. You might see some changes. It's called eScribe, and I know a few of your jurisdictions are using this right now. The agendas and the reports are going to look different online starting next week, but there are some great benefits. You can submit written public comments online, and videos will be bookmarked so you can go directly to specific items. If you need any assistance, you can contact us and we can help you with that. Project update, our draft 2025 regional plan. Today is the last day to provide your comments on the draft 2025 regional plan. This is one of the agency's most important responsibilities because it's long-term planning document for the region and it's refreshed every 4 years. This plan is very important because we have to be compliant with local, state, and federal regulations to continue receiving funding for projects and programs. And just as a reminder, in August, you've already mentioned it, but SANDAG will go dark in August, and the next Public Safety Committee meeting will be scheduled for the 3rd Friday in September. And I'll pass it back to you, Chair.
Fantastic. Thank you very much, Grace. Before we move into the agenda, Tony, did we already get our ARGIS update or do we have another?
That's the one part I didn't follow up on was we are so excited to be fully staffed. The 2 employees we've selected, we're waiting for the background process to occur. They are both current SANDAG employees who will be moving from SANDAG to ARGIS. One person is prepared to come over, waiting for the replacement for that person to come in, and then our other employees in the background process. And it's very exciting to actually have everyone you're supposed to have to do all the things that we want to do moving forward. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Before we move into the agenda, are there anyone else member comments? Okay, we'll move on to consent. I'll entertain a motion.
Make a motion to approve the consent calendar item.
I'll second. Do we need to vote? Yes. Yes,
I didn't catch who made the second.
I did.
No, Melina made the motion.
And I made the second.
You made the second.
Yes.
Wonderful. Thank
Chair
you.
made the second.
Chair, will we be taking public comment on consent calendar?
Okay. Do we have any public comments?
Yes, we have 2 in-person public comments and 1 online. Cesar Javier will be followed by Blair Beekman.
Cesar Javier, the public is confused. I have given mine an agenda. What are we trying to discuss now? Is it number 3, number 4, number 5?
Cesar, this is for item 3, the consent agenda for the approval of minutes. You submitted a slip to speak on this item.
I hope you hold my time. Thank you. I am part of this university. I deserve clear instruction and guidelines. Minutes are records, plural. It is the source of our, hopefully, planning, imagining, visioning. In 1 minutes year past, our names were there, but the subject is never written or literatured. Now I'm going to add another solution. Whoever is the planner here, please increase the time and incentivize public participation so there will be a kind of balance, not your monopoly, please. We are also bright. We went through recruitment like the police recruitment system. 5 times.
Thank you, Caesar. Your time has expired. Blair, please come to the microphone.
Hi, Blair Beekman. To comment on the meeting minutes, you had 2 items on ARGIS issues, and you had, I think, in the previous month, 2 months, you had ARGIS issues as well. You have an ARGIS issue today. Thank you. I really was hoping for a June public safety meeting. There wasn't. We've obviously had a really heavy June with ICE issues here in Southern California, with the over-militarization of ICE that I think we're really asking questions about. Thank you that I think here in San Diego, because of the South Park issues, we've taken a real strong approach to ask that we can't be over-militarizing in the future of these practices. And I hope yourselves as ARGIS can really understand the importance of data sharing and what that means and what civil protections means and good privacy. We're going to be working on better measures on those items, and good luck in wanting to do that together. Could be some good things. Thank you.
Thank you, Blair. Andrea Ebbing, you may go ahead.
Thank you. I wanted to comment on the process too. So for these ARGIS issues, I am actually a former SDPD recruit, and yet, boy, did the county and city, I mean, I would say destroyed my entire life and my children's life. And yet somebody who passed all of the things that the gentleman speaking earlier, passed all the background, passed everything. His name is Sergeant Detective Oliver of the Domestic Violence Unit, accepted $367,000 of something called other pay, which is not overtime, which is not benefits, which is not pension or regular pay. I believe these are kickbacks from my ex, in which he's a partner in the placement of defendants in diversion programs. And I think that that should be investigated. But unfortunately, the president, the executive director and counsel for Commission on Police Practices resigned, guessing as a result of this massive investigation that never got concluded. And that was the goal, to bounce before conclusion.
Thank you, Andrea. Your time has expired. As a reminder, please try to stick to the agenda items for public comments. Chair, that concludes our comments.
Thank you, Cammie. Any member comments? Okay, we went out of sequence. We have a motion and a second. Do we have to, are we doing electronic voting on this, Cammie?
Yes.
Okay, please vote, please.
And that motion passes unanimously with everyone present.
Thank you, thank you. Okay, moving on to item number 4, creating a culture of wellness. We're honored to have Staff Development Coordinator Jenna Propson, there she is, from the Sheriff's Office here to present how to create a culture of wellness in law enforcement. Jenna.
Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for having me. My name is Jenna Propson, and I'm the Staff Development Coordinator at the San Diego County Sheriff's Office. And I'm going to talk to you a little bit today about creating a culture of wellness. And as we know, this topic is, I'm sure, very near and dear to everybody's heart here. And I also know that sometimes this topic can hit differently for different people, depending on where we're at with things and what's going on in your specific agencies. And so I just want to acknowledge that and thank you guys off the bat for being here and allowing me to be here as well. We're all impacted by this topic, and it's one that is near and dear to my heart based on my personal story. So just to clarify some things, when I say law enforcement professionals, I'm including everybody in the room here and including folks that are both on the pro staff side or civilian side, as well as the professional or the sworn side as well. So it's to include agents, deputies, sheriffs, officers, everybody who works within the law enforcement community. So this is the evolution of my law enforcement career. As a young idealistic officer, I never would have imagined where my law enforcement career would have taken me, or the journey that I would be on. We all have a story about how we got to this room, and I'm honored to be sitting here with you to speak about this topic that I'm passionate about. I'm originally from Wisconsin, and yes, I love the Green Bay Packers and cheese. It's really a requirement growing up there. And been passionate about law enforcement since I was about 2 years old. My mom tells me that I wrote tickets to offending family members. I couldn't even write, and I was writing tickets to them already and constantly asking about law enforcement. I was a police explorer at the age of 13, and then community service officer, evidence custodian, a police officer. I moved to San Diego to earn my master's degree in organizational leadership with an emphasis on police wellness. And I chose police wellness because of my own journey in law enforcement, my journey on wellness, and my journey through PTSD, depression, and OCD, which is a dangerous combination. And I worked then in higher education, and I was a staff development coordinator in leadership, where I would write curriculum, teach, and train. And now in my current role as the staff development coordinator at the Sheriff's Office, I get to combine my passion for law enforcement, leadership development, and also being able to teach and present as well. And I'm absolutely loving this role. So, if you will, before we go any further, I'd like to take a moment to just walk us through a scenario here. If you feel comfortable and willing, close your eyes and just imagine with me. So I'm gonna just read some things to you. Again, if you're comfortable with it, and close your eyes and imagine with me. So imagine your younger law enforcement self. You're 10 minutes into your shift. You haven't even finished your coffee yet, and dispatch calls you to respond to a P&B, pulseless, not breathing person. Your heart starts to pound. You turn on your lights and sirens and drive code across town. You arrive on scene and confirm, based on the limp body, brain matter on the walls, and the smell, that the individual is dead based on a self-inflicted gunshot wound. After investigating for several hours, you start writing the report, and in the middle of writing the report, you're dispatched for a retail theft, then a vehicle accident with injuries, a mental health situation, a domestic violence situation, and the shift continues like that for 10 hours. It's day 5 of your 6-day work week, and every shift has been like this for the last week. After your shift, you go home, you crawl into bed so you can do it all over again tomorrow. You're exhausted, and all you want to do is sleep. As you lay there, your mind starts replaying images of what you saw, touched, heard, smelled, and witnessed over the past 10 hours, which leads you to think of other things from past shifts. You try to shut your mind off and numb the feelings that you can't name. The replaying of the scenes leads to images of you putting your gun to your head, shooting yourself. You start to think, is this really worth it? You became an officer because you wanted to help people, and you can't do that. There's too much evil for you to combat. I'm a burden to my family. I can't save anyone. Does it even matter what I'm doing? Can I make a difference? You can open your eyes. Now, I know this scenario is geared more towards police officers working patrol, but you can replace any of these things mentioned to fit your agency or your role. Maybe it's a jail death. Maybe it's a fight with an inmate or a parolee. Maybe you're undercover and you walk into a drug house where adults are tweaked out, laying on the floor, and the kids are screaming in the next room because they're scared, hungry. Maybe they're covered in their own feces because they're not being taken care of. Maybe you're a dispatcher and you receive a call for an infant death, a woman who's calling to help investigate a domestic situation where her husband beat her and she's barely breathing. Maybe you investigate these types of calls, or you lead a bureau or an agency that's investing these types of calls on a daily basis. Maybe you're juggling the expectations of your people, the community members, the news outlets, the angry family members. You can't feel, or you're feeling like you can't please anyone, or the decisions you make are falling short. Maybe you're carrying the weight of the political climate, answering the questions to justify your job. You fill in the blanks. All of this could be you, or then some. Going back to our original scenario, that was me. I was spiraling into a vicious cycle. I thought I was okay. I was pretending I was okay, but really I was slowly dying inside. By God's grace, I'm here with you today, and I ask the question of how many of our law enforcement professionals are walking around feeling those same things, or maybe some of you in this room are feeling those same things today. Here's some suicide statistics from the first of the year to July 1st. So there's been 63 total suicides of emergency personnel. 44 of those have been law enforcement officers. 9 have been firefighters. 7 have been corrections officers. and 3 have been EMS. These are just the ones we know about. So what are your thoughts when you see these statistics? What do you feel? For some, it may bring up a name or a face. Maybe there's feelings of anger, sadness, confusion, guilt, or more questions. Maybe you think more about the to-do list on the side of all the notifications and paperwork that has to happen with these. Maybe you think about the families these numbers represent. Maybe you don't know what to say, so you don't say anything. Maybe you think, how can I help a grieving family member? What do I say? And I remind you that even sitting with them and being present for them in their grief is important, that matters in that moment as you walk alongside them. 1 in 7 officers worldwide suffer from depression and PTSD. 1 in 10 officers suffer with other mental health issues. 55% consider resigning weekly or daily, and 54% more likely to die by suicide than the general public. I had some statistics on generational components, but it's skipping and I don't know how to get there. So I'll just tell them to you. 65% of baby boomers never take a sick day due to stress. And that's vastly different than our current workforce who take sick days for anything and everything. And a little bit about the reason baby boomers maybe aren't taking sick days for stress is because they were told that the strength is repressing everything and they need to just suck it up and do their job. Mental health had more of a stigma for baby boomers than it does for our current generation. And this mentality has to do with several factors of how they were raised by their parents, what their parents went through, and what the world events around their growth and growing up have to do with why they may not talk about this as much. One researcher says that baby boomers do not ignore therapy because they're stronger than the younger generations. They ignore it because they were shamed out of it. And so this is the environment that the baby boomers have grown up in or have been a part of. And statistics show that 16% to 10% of baby boomers seek therapy due to trauma. And now that's drastically different than the Gen Xers, who are 30% of them will go into therapy because of the trauma that they see. And then the 31% of millennials and Gen Zers are going into therapy because of what they experienced due to trauma. And the more recent generations are going through or have seen how the previous generations have gone through trauma or dealt with that. And so they're trying to change the pendulum, shift the pendulum. So they're more open to talk about it. So now we get to this exposure to trauma. So if you think about a law enforcement professional's career, a timeline from the first year to the time that they retire. And I understand that any one of these incidents can happen at any point in someone's career. Where I have them placed is just for example purposes. So the first year you have your trainee, and maybe a crisis point for them looks like a confrontation with a training officer, or no vacation time, or they're just adjusting to shift work. And that's their crisis points. Then you get to 2 to 5 years. You got your frontline employees, and maybe their crisis points look like on-duty accidents, maybe a fight with a suspect, an officer-involved shooting, horrific death scene. And you go to your 6 to 10, and now you're getting into your supervisory role. So you have your detectives, your sergeants, your supervisors. And so their crisis points may be reviewing or overseeing child homicide units or cases, child abuse cases, officer-involved shootings where they're either involved or investigating them or helping their officers who are involved with it, and in custody deaths. Then you have your 20 or 10 to 20 plus years. This is your management level. And again, these folks may be overseeing units as a whole and overseeing lots of different people who are experiencing these crisis points along the way. So you have your major crimes unit, your officer-involved shooting. Maybe you're investigating more IA investigations. Maybe you have health issues yourself. And then you're retired. And when you retire, everyone's like, yes, you made it. But when you retire, you lose your identity and your purpose because you're no longer tied to an organization. You're bored. You're missing work. You have health issues. And so now everything you knew is gone. And so what are we doing with those folks? According to research, the average exposure to critical incidents for emergency personnel is 178 in their career. that's contrasted with 2 to 3 traumatic events for the general public. So while a lot of our focus can be on sworn and the trauma that they're experiencing, a lot of this can also affect our civilian staff or our pro staff. So if we look at our dispatchers, our crime scene investigations, our CPRA units who are looking at redacting files over and over throughout their shift, and they're reading the incidents over and over, they're experiencing secondhand trauma. You have your nursing staff that's in jails, your mental health clinicians, your young professionals who've never had a real job, and now they're working on the streets or they're working in a jail facility, maybe as a cook or an office assistant. And even those folks in this profession can experience trauma just by the nature of the work and the nature of being around the work. And then getting back to the retired folks, even those folks can experience trauma. So I was driving one day and I drove over some roadkill, and immediately my mind went to a scene that I had worked, which was a horrific suicide scene. My palms were sweating, my mind was racing, and I was having a full-blown panic attack based off of this trauma that I experienced years and years ago. And at that point, I'd been off the street for 6 years. I wasn't in it anymore, and yet it was still affecting me. And so our retired folks, when they leave, they are also affected by this. So not addressing these crisis points is going to affect how our law enforcement persons interact with their colleagues, their loved ones, their community. And we're never going to be able to mitigate these crisis points. We work with trauma every day as law enforcement professionals. We're never going to be able to mitigate those. However, how we respond to and learn how to handle these traumatic incidents, as well as the culture of law enforcement, can change. We as leaders in this room can change how we handle these crisis points. There's a generational component. All right, so our historical view of law enforcement has been, don't talk about what you experience. Keep your head down, do your job. If you do talk about it, you're considered weak or a liability to your office or your department. When I was dealing with PTSD and going through that journey, I felt really alone. I felt like I couldn't talk about it because if I did, I was going to be seen as weak and ineffective in my job. And I loved my job. And so instead, I chose to suffer in silence so that I could keep my job and do what I loved. This is the culture that we're combating. This is the history that we have. And I believe we're doing a good job of shifting this, but I also believe that we have a little bit more work that we can do. So how do we shift the culture? What can we do as people in this room, as leaders in this room? So continue normalizing and talking about mental health and about our experiences. San Diego Sheriff's Office had a fireside chat a couple years ago with our command staff where they came and talked about some of the traumatic experiences they've had and how they dealt with them and how they healed through that. I was just talking to a coworker the other day about how I still go to counseling for tune-ups every month. This is the normal conversations that we can have and start incorporating it into our everyday language. And just by talking about it is going to normalize it. A lot of conferences and trainings are talking about mental health and wellness, which is awesome. I think that's great. We're getting in the right direction. But it's important for our people to have these conversations within the walls of our agency. Our briefing rooms should be the safest place for our people. When we have critical incidents, how are we talking about them? How are we following up with our people? I know a lot of us have wellness units, if not everybody in this room, and it's awesome that the wellness units follow up with our people. Are you guys following up? Are we as leaders following up? Are the first line supervisors following up with those folks? When I was an officer, I was a part of an agency of about 50 people, and I was on 2 on-duty accidents, really close together. And I knew everybody in the agency knew who each other were. And the first time that my chief talked to me was when I came back from leave. And on one of the occasions, my lieutenant asked if I could drive myself to the hospital. Those are misses. And I would hope that none of that is happening in our agencies. But as a reminder, we got to check up on our people. We got to see how they're doing and where they're at. Incorporate culturally competent counselors into your agencies. We have our own mental health clinician who is dedicated just to our personnel and staff, and she's doing a phenomenal job. If you don't have that person, I would highly recommend getting somebody like that in your agencies. that can help with the things we're talking about. Creating opportunities for your folks, both the sworn side and the civilian side, to engage with our community in positive ways. We have our Junior Women's Academy that we do every year. And this has been an awesome opportunity for our sworn staff and our civilian staff to work together for a common mission to help our community and to show off the sheriff's office together. And this just boosts morale, gives them an opportunity to leave the office and then work for a common purpose at an event. Encourage healthy habits, both physically, mentally, emotional, financially. Know your people. Back to the finance part. So the baby boomers and the Gen Xers, they have really good pensions. And you guys, they're pretty set for retirement. However, the new and upcoming workforce doesn't really have that great of the pensions that are coming up just by nature of what's going on. And so the millennials and the Gen Zers are stressed more about finances than maybe previous generations have been. And so this affects how they work, what they're doing. Maybe they're doing more overtime because, well, we all like money, but also maybe they're trying to buy a house for their family, right? And raising their kids here in San Diego, that's challenging, right? And so they're focused on working more and more and more, and they're burning out by that. Or maybe they're considering, this isn't worth it, I'm just going to leave and go to another job, right? So these are some of the generational things that we're addressing within our workforce, or should be looking at in our workforce. Another thing as you go through this is, can you design your briefing rooms or your areas, your common areas in your offices from a trauma-informed perspective? Can you have massage chairs somewhere for your folks? Can you have a quiet room where they can go and cool down? Can you have a rec room where there's some ping pong tables and some games that they can play kind of in between shifts or in between working on their reports, just to reset, just to give them something else to think about momentarily before they go back out on the streets? Again, know your people. You can implement a mentorship program. We have this as well at our agency. I'm sure many of you do as well, but this helps create these conversations naturally that are happening already. Talk about the why behind the decisions. Talk openly about what's going on. We had an officer in one of the departments I worked with where he would joke around about drinking, how much he drank, what he drank. And this was just a common thing that he would talk about. And everyone would joke about him and joke with him. And I found out later that he was going home and sitting in his basement drinking and thinking about killing himself. And luckily, he reached out for help. And he's here today for, not physically in this room, but he's here to take care of his wife and his kids. And that's not always the case. And so what are your folks talking about? How are they talking about things? Those are things we can pick up on, to talk to them about, to check up on them. Our office has about 4,200 employees, both sworn and professional. And I think our leadership does a really great job of knowing our people. Our undersheriff goes around with his cup of coffee and talks to folks in the morning. And I'm not just saying that because he's here. I wrote this before I knew he was going to be here. But he also talks to our management teams and our supervisors and encourages them to know our people. That's our number 2 guy. And he's doing this to empower the people below him to know their people. My direct supervisor and I have career development conversations regularly. The sheriff herself posts on my LinkedIn account, which is kind of cool. So I believe that they do a really good job of knowing their people in the day-to-day. How we interact in the day-to-day, those moments directly impact our people and how they're going to reach out to us when they need help the most. Build those relationships now, establish trust now to help them navigate these crisis points. I'll leave you with this. We all want to support our law enforcement professionals. We wouldn't be in this room if we didn't want that, if we didn't care about that. We value people. We need healthy people. Public safety depends on it. Our communities depend on it. Agencies depend on it, and our families depend on it. We want law enforcement professionals to be able to complete the mission to protect and serve not only their community, but their families and themselves. When a culture of wellness is created, law enforcement professionals will begin to thrive rather than just survive in their careers. While the crisis points aren't going to be mitigated, we're always going to have those. We can help establish and help our folks learn how to navigate those crisis points by creating a culture of wellness where we know our people, recognize when they're struggling, provide cultural competent tools and resources, and support them along the way. In a culture of wellness, our folks have the confidence to talk about their struggles and seek the support they need to complete the mission. Thank you for being in this room. Thank you for having important conversations, for being a leader that does hard things to create change that matters. Thank you for caring about your people. Thank you for your service to our communities. What you're doing matters. It matters to our communities and it matters to our people. So thank you for that. Together we can change the law enforcement culture. And one final thought, one of the hardest things to do is ask for help, yet asking for help saved my life. So let's be leaders where our people can come to and be a safe place for our leaders to come to and ask for help. I appreciate your time. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Jenna. Cami, do we have any public comments on this item?
Yes, we have 2 public comments in person and 1 online. Cesar Javier will be followed by Blair Beekman. Cesar?
Mr. Chair, or proponent of SANDAG, may I request 2 minutes?
Cesar, no, we have a tight agenda and we're keeping it at 1 minute. Thank you.
I'm sorry for the tone of your failure. And thank you for your presentation. We learned that you are quite remorseful of being a peace officer. Looks like you didn't accomplish anything. You're frustrated. I'm sorry. The cross that we carry is caused by the corrupt politicians, their errors of opinions, their selfish views. Councilor Poster is smiling. That's the truth, empirical. That's why the training is, oi, don't smile at the public. Mind your own business. It's wrong. You have to attract the people because they are
Thank you,
your...
Cesar. Your time has expired. Blair Beekman, you may come to the microphone.
Hi, Blair Beekman. Hopefully the words of the presenter was something of how we're trying to address healing. And it takes a lot to share. Thank you. And that's what we're trying to learn here as police and community. We were at war for continually for 15 years. We were in a bad state. We've been trying to move since 2014 into a new era of working towards openness, accountability. That brought on about 2020, George Floyd things, and it became difficult to talk about police reform that we were already building. These are the kind of items here today that you really worked on it well, and it was really nice to hear. So keep up the good work, and it's sharing, it's becoming familiar with things that I hope we can be doing well in the upcoming years here. This has been a great report. Thank you. And good luck with dealing with violence. We're dealing with violence this summer from our federal agencies. It's obviously hurting a lot. It's going to create more violence. Good luck, we can stop it. Thank you.
Thank you, Blair. Phone number ending in 731. You may go ahead.
The trauma chart, each new generation has been more coddled and yet also more cognizant of trauma prevention. There's a significant difference between what is referred to as millennials versus the Gen Zers. Many Gen Zers have been raised to think there are special victimhood statuses to achieve, but the money point was very true. The suicide stats, are they only for San Diego County or for the whole country? 70% being white, almost all men matches the general suicide stats. Men are the worst at asking for help or noticing physical signs or talking about their emotions. Maybe male law enforcement needs a male care coordinator. What if both law enforcement and non-law enforcement shared their experiences of enforcement encounters so everyone could understand each other's perspectives? Perhaps September 26th, National Law Enforcement Suicide Awareness Day needs to be recognized at councils and boards where law enforcement is actually present. Jenna, I wish your complicated real-life examples weren't reduced and disrespected by 1-minute commentary that makes it impossible to touch. Cesar was right about politicians being the problem. That's even true right now at this very moment. Thank you.
Thank you, and that concludes public comment.
Thank you, Cami. Thank you, Truth. Any member comments? Yes, Vice Chair.
Jenna, thank you for your report, and also just thank you for being vulnerable about what happened in your life experience and how that can help help affect positively other law enforcement officers as well as us firefighters. Since this isn't a time to ask questions, there's probably just statements that I'll just kind of make. I think when it comes to, I'll take a step back. So it's like my first year as a civilian, not being in the Marine Corps or in the fire service. So I'm kind of feral. So I'm just get to say how I feel, which is pretty cool. I don't have to worry about you guys reprimanding me. I think that for a lot of us that have joined law enforcement and fire, we're a group of individuals that are wired very differently. We have decided to make a profession and a career out of taking quite serious risks for our own safety in order to help others. And I think that having that type of risk-taking behavior then creates other residual effects that can take place negatively, right? So when there's too much stress going on, that's where you start seeing substance use disorders and you start seeing violence within ourselves lashing out in places that we're not familiar with all of a sudden. And then when we don't become who we see ourselves in the mirror anymore, that's when we start spiraling down into some positions that we never thought we were going to get ourselves into. Then I also think there's folks that join the fire service and the police department that are kind of not wired that way. And it all almost becomes counterintuitive to their personalities. And then it becomes something where they're not a good cultural fit with the departments. And then that also then there causes issues and mental health issues. So there's always that. I just always recognize that just through my career, seeing folks that we all fit in and then those that did not, and that should be checked. I think so much that we need to alert our supervisors and our other peers when we notice behavioral changes with our other peers. So sometimes it's not about me saying, hey, I have these problems. Sometimes I'm not realizing it because you're incrementally increasing stresses and the next thing you know, you're not the same person you are. But in the fire service, at least, we live with each other for a third of our lives. And so I can smell my friends walking into the station, right, or whatever. You know everything about these folks. And so when you start seeing behavioral changes, I think there should be some cues where you're like, hey, hey, Captain, I think he's acting a little bit off. He's losing his temper more and more often, or even the other way around. He's a little too happy these days. Something's up and we're not understanding why. So I just think that recognizing behavioral changes around your peers is something that you can do and try to find a way to honestly approach those individuals without making them feel like all of a sudden they're being singled out. There's a sense of pride with what we do. And then I think all the way up to us, I think culturally there should be an aspect where when our guys on the floor are hitting certain stresses because of the way we decided to make SOPs, SOGs, and then policy making, and it's not working, that we need to hear that it's not working. And then chiefs should also have the opportunity to be able to openly express to us without fear of their position to tell us that something's not working that we decided to make. And so that relationship back and forth will allow those boots on the ground, the fingertips of what takes place within our departments to the community, and to allow them not to get seared or burned because that they're having to apply the policies that aren't making sense that we're doing. So that there and there. And then thank you so much again, Jenna, for saying what you did.
Thank you.
Any other member comments? Okay, I think, yes, sir. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. This is a special moment for me. I've known Jenna for a couple of years. She's been a mentor for me as a student and in my career. And I just want to say thank you for this presentation. Thank you for this work. I'm definitely going to pass along the presentation to our office because I've had conversations with prosecutors in our human trafficking section or in our special victims unit that have talked about they can only do a 4-month stint prosecuting child abuse cases, and then it gets too much for them. And I remember one time when we got coffee, you described trauma as a backpack, as in you experience a traumatic incident and that puts a rock in that backpack. And as you keep experiencing those traumatic incidents, that backpack gets heavier, and we need ways to take those rocks out, take those boulders out. And I think wellness units, things like that, are great instruments for agencies to use. So thank you for being here. Appreciate you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Any other member comments? Just real quickly on kind of piggybacking on what the vice chair said, Chief McQueen, I'm watching you as this whole thing's going on because every critical incident we go to, they go with us. They operate in a different environment. They have that camaraderie where they go back to the firehouse and they're together. So they do get to watch each other. Problem is, when you're with somebody all the time, you sometimes don't notice those subtle changes. This county's gone a long way from when Tim Curran and I were young deputies and, you know, buck up, boy, just get in here and do your job and then go back to work, to now we really look after our people. And I think we took a cue from the fire services, knowing that you can't do that. It will eventually start taking a physical and mental toll on your people. So, Chief, I'm going to give you the floor. I think you have something for us.
Yeah, I was actually going to be kind of quiet on this one. Kudos to you for stepping up and bringing this message here. I think that's probably the biggest thing that we can do as the first responders and leaders of our organization. I will watch tablet command, which is what our incidents come down on. I can see certain calls. When the San Diego police officer was shot in front of the Ralph's Ranch store, our guys were the ones that came in as the first responders to treat that police officer. My first thing was grab that engine company and make sure they're good. Make sure they have everything they need, because they just now treated one of their fellow officers and friends in the first responders world. Everybody's got a trigger. It may be the sight, it might be the smell. I remember doing CPR about 3 months ago with Escondido Fire and San Marcos Fire. I'm in civilian clothes, but I knew everybody on scene. They knew me as chief. My wife, right after that, when we went to lunch, she's looking at me, "Are you good?" "Yeah, I'm good. That was just business." I don't know the patient, but that's just business. But what we used to do is I used to go back to the firehouse. We used to call the fire engine the penalty box. Don't express anything outside that. But when you're inside, we can say what we need to say to get it off our chest. And so I think the fire service, the police and firemen, we've all done better. There's more that we can do. We actually have a list on all of our refrigerators of everything that's available to our guys so that they can make the phone call if they need to without having to draw any attention to themselves. A lot of free things that we're trying to give to them so that they can take the first initiative to put the train back on the tracks, if that's the better term to use. But yeah, but also to be brave when you do see somebody that's a little off, and just have that sidebar conversation. We've got our chaplains, and all these things are very instrumental tools for their mental wellness. Yeah, those exposures can be anything, anytime, in a grocery store, run into somebody, a smell. Yeah, it's incredible. But yeah, the fire service, we've gotten better. But we put guys out on strike teams for 16 to 21 days. You know, they're away from friends, family, but that's been their world for, you know, that entire shift. But yeah, to catch them on the backside, just making sure everybody's whole, and put them back to service after that. So thank you for the floor, Chair.
Yes, thank you very much, Chief. Any other member comments? Okay, seeing none, we will move on to item number 5. This will be presented by Octavio Rodriguez. Dr. Rodriguez will provide an overview of the FY 2024 public safety expenditures.
Thank you, Chair. Members of the committee, I know we're running a little late, so I'll try to make this as fast as possible. It's a small presentation, and everything that we include here is in our report that's already published in our website, so everybody can go there and check it out. So these are the public safety expenditures for fiscal year 23-24. So this the last fiscal year. And what we saw this last fiscal year was the highest spending in over a decade in public safety. We had a 6% increase from last year to close to $3 billion, which is about $900 per resident. It doesn't look like that here, but that's because rounding. But this, in fact, was the highest spending year in a decade. And it's not related specifically, but we have seen that as it coincides the increase in investment in public safety and some of the decreases in crime that we've seen, especially over the last 5 years. So the majority of this public safety dollars are spent in law enforcement. That's almost a half of it, $1.4 billion spent in law enforcement, and other categories include corrections, courts, prosecutions, etc. So all of these categories saw increases from the previous year. Changes ranged between 3 and 9%. Though when we look at the 5-year comparison, we still see some categories where we're still spending less than 5 years ago. As we saw, there was a huge decrease around the pandemic years, and then we start to see spending going back again. But still, some of these categories are showing some decreases. Law enforcement is one of those areas where there's a decrease from 5 years ago. However, this year, what we're seeing is a 4% increase, which is in fact the first increase in the last 5 years that we've seen in law enforcement. So how are those law enforcement dollars spent across the region? We can see that there's a distribution of spending, meaning it's not uniform. Those resources are allocated depending on budgets and needs. But regionally, we see that there's some rather equitable distribution, as we can see with the 433 regional average. That is meeting almost every jurisdiction's standard. Now, population is the most important driver in spending, as we know. I mentioned that jurisdictions allocate resources depending on budgets and needs, but also what really drives those needs are population. And as we can see, the most populous jurisdictions spend more dollars than smaller jurisdictions. And so we can see that affecting the level of spending across jurisdiction. So in terms of staffing and specifically talking about sworn police, we are still seeing some discrepancy in the number of sworn officers per resident. We have an average of 1.32 sworn officers per 1,000 inhabitants. This rate has generally increased since fiscal year 1920, so it's 3% over 5 years. Still pretty stable of what we're seeing. The increments are very, very small or discrete, but this situation actually reflects some ongoing challenges over complex issues regarding staffing shortages, as we will discuss in this next slide. As we can see, most agencies exceeded their budgeted overtime, except Oceanside and Coronado. All of the other jurisdictions in the county experienced this. This is something that we are seeing consistently, at least over the last 5 years. For example, this specific year, and this is the graph that is on the left-hand side, there was a total of $112 million that was budgeted for overtime, and we ended up as a region spending over $180 million. This, of course, has many explanations, but it does reflect issues with long issues like frozen positions, high vacancy rates, retirements, and resignations. And we know that agencies have been working very, very hard to overcome these issues, but still we are seeing deficits in this area. And this is not exclusively on law enforcement agencies. We are seeing some societal issues that influence this. We've seen how public opinion has shifted towards law enforcement. And we also seeing, and this is important that it was mentioned briefly, some generational change in how different new generations can be wired, and some of the clashes that causes when assuming a role within law enforcement. So important things to keep in mind. There's more information available about this report, but I'm just going to bring this to an end. I'm happy to respond to any questions or happy to hear any comments. Again, this can be found in our latest public safety expenditures report and SANDAG website. Thank you very much, Chair.
Thank you, Dr. Rodriguez. Cami, any public comments on this item?
Yes, we have 2 in person and 1 online. Cesar Javier will be followed by Blair Beekman. Cesar.
I'll be fast. Cesar Javier. I was not approved of my training at the police academy because I was not a legitimate citizen. I was only a green card holder. They miss it. Probably the height of criminality or breach of law could have been diminished. What happened to Captain Marco Barco? What happened to those police officers, patriotic officers, Marines who were shot? And who recovered? Who
Please
responded?
confine your
Thank you, sir.
comments to the item, please. We're on item 5. Thank you.
Oh my God, we are away from our solution making. My point here, sir, is the politicians are the ones creating the issue. Please, let's validate that.
We're discussing budget expenditures.
Yes, sir.
Yes, thank you.
I am going to that, sir. That's why I need 2 minutes. Now, culture. Win the public support. Smile. Learn the book of Sun Won-Chu without.
Thank you, Caesar. Your time has expired. Blair, you may come to the microphone.
Hi, Larry Beekman. It's been my understanding there's been less and less enthusiasm for people to join the police or to be a part of law enforcement, but it's how to address that and make that a good process that we're trying to work on at this point in our lives, is my understanding. With that, an anecdotal tale of the work that I do with technology accountability. The city of San Diego is realizing that they just got a contract for 500 new ALPRs. They're realizing they can cut down 50, 100, 150 ALPRs and still be doing pretty much the same amount of public safety work and coverage with that less amount of ALPRs. I think it's a really important lesson that with minimal use technology, we can be still practicing needed public safety. San Diego has about the same urban density as Denver. It's twice the area square miles, but they have 5 times as many ALPRs. So something can be addressed. Denver's working on ALPR things too. Good luck. Thank you.
Thank you, Blair. Phone number ending in 731. Go ahead.
Why is there inflation that affected public safety spending? Politics. Why was law enforcement targeted for defunding? Politics. How can we increase public safety spending? Quit playing politics with people's lives. There's only $900 spent on each resident for safety, while deputies are getting paid in the $300,000 range. Corrections spending is also way too low. We need more people locked up, especially criminal politicians. A ton of money should also be going to mandatory rehab programs so we can end the state's drug and alcohol addiction crisis. Public defense has gone up because the corrupt county is obsessed with providing lawyers for illegals, wasting $5 million of our tax dollars a year to defend people who shouldn't even be here. Based on the charts, it looks like crazy Oceanside is underinvesting while safe Coronado may be overinvesting, and maybe Escondido needs more cops. Only 1 cop per 1,000 residents anywhere is not good. Blame the county's clout shot demands. Again, they're the problem. But San Marcos and Santee have been rapidly growing and should start planning to create their own police departments rather than renting cops not from their own neighborhoods.
Thank you, and that concludes public comment.
Thank you, Cammie. Any member comments? Yes, Vice Chair.
Thanks for your presentation, Octavio. Just 2 questions in regards to slides 7 and 8. So 7 and 8, it seems like there's almost a correlation when I look at that between not having the appropriate ratio region-wide and of sworn officers to population, and then that of overtime. Is that what I'm seeing? Is that what you guys are recognizing? Or am I assuming?
So yeah, this is the sworn officers per, the ratio of sworn officers per 100,000 population. And this is the ratio of the spending, the overspending in overtime.
Yeah, it seems like with a chunk of the studies, it looks like that the lower the ratio, so we're understaffing, the higher the overtime, and it looks like it's statistically being shown like that. Is that what you guys are recognizing?
So we haven't done a statistical correlation between 2 items, but we do know, and this is part of our study, we we try to look deeper into the reasons why there was overspending and overtime. And some of the important issues that we found is that there are there are some challenges for recruiting new officers. Agencies rely on already working officers to cover some of those shifts. That's one of the explanations that we've had from our partners from law enforcement agencies.
Gotcha. And then just the second question is, we know as a region, especially through SANDAG, that our population is going to increase just duly because of the state mandates of the housing increase. Do we factor that in, knowing that like these ratios could get even worse if we're not planning ahead, knowing that we're going to need X amount of officers per city and county region? Are we forecasting and trying to anticipate, and then also are the chiefs able to recognize that?
So we haven't done such a study where we try to forecast or proactively predict spending based on population. This, of course, we get the information on the total number of the total dollars that are spent per jurisdiction in that we present along with the population. However, we don't have the full coverage or the full range of the specific needs per jurisdiction. So it wouldn't be the only predictor, but we can look into that and see to do a more longitudinal analysis and look how we could, how this can factor going forward.
And then probably last one is with the slide 7. I remember this slide somewhat being presented to us in Carlsbad through our police chief. And there was a ratio number that was like the ideal ratio. Was it like 1.8 or something like that? And I just remember like pretty much almost all of us didn't hit that mark.
So traditionally, the number that has been mentioned nationally is 2.4. That was something that was. I'm try not to give, but I think it was 2019 or 2020 where that number was most recently updated at the federal level by the FBI. However, this is information that has not been updated, but I believe that at least in our region, there has been it's like they have been stable around 1.3, 1.5 per 1,000 residents.
But nowhere near optimal of what it would be to give like.
With the exception of some jurisdictions, we haven't seen getting to that standard, if you will.
I think that's good to know also on top of it, just like the stress points we were just kind of referring in agenda item 4. It's like if I have to do the job of 5, I'll start getting pissed off. Just saying. Okay, thank you.
Yes. Thank you, Vice Chair. Councilmember Molina.
Thank you, Chair Musgrove. Thank you, Dr. Rodriguez, for this presentation. And actually, my question has to do on the slide that's on the board before us. And I want to just make sure that I understand, specifically for National City, because that's the region I am a council member for. It says 1.54, and that means 1.54 officers per 1,000 inhabitants.
That is correct.
Within National City?
That is correct. Within, and this is calculated using SANDAG population estimates of 2023. And these are staffing numbers on fiscal year 24.
Okay, thank you. My second question has to do also with this slide. And I want to thank our public speaker, Mr. Beekman, for touching upon this. It has to do with a continuing point that I keep hearing within my city, which is that we are losing officers and that we are, constantly trying to retain our officers, and sometimes that is a challenge. The slide here, though, speaks to there has been actually an increase, 3% increase over 5 years of sworn officers, in our jurisdictions. And that feels a little bit contradictory to what I just stated, which is this notion that we are having trouble retaining officers. So can you help me maybe understand the growth that you are demonstrating here on this slide, and then the argument that I hear from the ground? And I welcome any of the comments from our law enforcement folks here at the table. Your intel would be very helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much for the question. So yeah, like this comparison is from a point in time 5 years ago. And that comparison showed that at this point in time, I'm talking about fiscal year 2024, the ratio has increased slightly, but it does not really reflect the challenges that law enforcement agencies have experienced, especially over the last 5 years. So there has been, and we've seen it in the previous years, that there has been a decrease, and when we compare to that point 5 years ago, and this is the first year that we see that uptick, that it goes back to levels that we've seen before. As I was telling to Vice Chair, we haven't really, as a region, overpassed that 1.5, but we have been close and around 1.5 in the past. So what we're seeing right now is maybe going a little upward to the 1.5, but still it's a process of recovering. And I don't know if I responded to your answer correctly. I can look into more information specifically on how this has changed across the different years.
Thank you for that. I am interested in understanding this topic a little bit more. I would encourage maybe more granular detail into that specific question about the challenges of retention. Thank you.
Thank you. Chief Aldavinos.
Yes, Dr. Rodriguez, I have a question and it may clarify the question that you just received. So is this based on budgeted police officer positions or actual police officers?
That is budgeted.
Okay, so that explains the gap that you are seeing. For example, we have 219 budgeted positions, but we've been operating at a 25, 26 officer vacancy for the last 2 or 3 years.
The word granular came up, so it is comparing an apple to an orange when you put one city against another, where there's a ratio of uniform officers who are working patrol, detectives, support staff, and then where's the overtime being generated? Is it on the investigative side? Is it the patrol side? What type of calls? Do you have different shift differentials?
We don't have that level of granularity.
So if you did that and teased it apart completely, then you could offer one city to look at another to say, this is how we're doing it. How is it you're saving so much money or dealing with your staffing issues? But it doesn't answer the question of what are the propensities and call volume for one jurisdiction over another. So there will be a little bit of crossover between National City, Chula Vista, National City, Southeast San Diego, and then you go work your way around. But when you compare Chula Vista against Escondido, it's going to be completely different. So putting them on the chart like that is fantastic, but there are too many factors in aggravation that do not mitigate the numbers themselves. Any other comments? Fantastic. Then we're going to move on to our last item of the day. Cami, item number 6. This item will be presented by Tony Ray and Caroline Stevens from Argus and will be open for discussion following the presentation.
Good afternoon, everybody. It says the presentation will be by Tony and Caroline, but it's going to be by Caroline. I'm here for some small parts. Thank you.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Caroline Stevens. I'm a principal research analyst with Argus, and I'm here today to talk about a topic that's not that spicy, but it is important. So I know it's the last item of our meeting, so I hope I can engage you on this. But feel free to ask questions as I go, because it's a little bit murky, I would say, at this point. So I am here today to give an update on our cybers and NIBRs crime reporting. I've given a few presentations at this committee before, but just to refresh everybody's memory, cybers is our California incident-based reporting system. NIBRs is the national incident-based reporting system, and this is how we gather and report crime up to the state and federal government. I also just want to remind everybody ARGIS's role in this. So ARGIS is the Automated Regional Justice Information System. We are a department within SANDAG. We're a separate JPA. We have been serving the community, gathering law enforcement data for all of our law enforcement agencies and sheriff's department in the region for 40 plus years now. And we focus on gathering that data, cleaning it, compiling it, and getting it ready for crime reporting. And then through a live XML interface, we actually send that data up to the state, and then the state sends it on to the feds for us. So our role in the community is to gather crime data and make it ready for reporting, essentially. I also want to give a little bit more background on CYBERS for those of you who haven't been to this committee before. CYBERS is the California Incident-Based Reporting System. It is a state or sub-program of NIBRS, which is the National Incident-Based Reporting System. We gather crime data on 52 types of crime, and for each of those crimes, we gather 58 different data elements and send that up to the state. We also gather data on 8 types of arrests. And it is a charge-driven system. So whatever charges police officers are placing on those crime reports and arrests is driving this reporting. And that's going to boil down to the issue that I'm going to talk about next. So ARGIS has been doing this crime reporting since 2021 with flying colors. We have been gathering up the crime data, reporting it up to the feds, got our NIBRS certification in 2021. We had about a 1% error rate the entire time we were doing it after we got past our testing regimen. Then in 2022, we got our CYBERS certification, meaning the state said, hey, all your data is looking good. It's good to go. We're taking it in. And we kept our error rate really low, meaning the cases that are getting rejected from that system back to us to fix up the data, that rate has been really low. So now we're hitting a new roadblock, which we want to talk to you about today because we may need more support from our elected officials moving forward, lobbying on behalf of this issue. So in June of 2024, the California Department of Justice took a big step in some of their charge table cleanup. They have a group that's called the Master Charge Table Team. This is not part of the California State Legislature. This is a subcommittee of the California Department of Justice. And they administratively repealed about 175 charges that our officers are using in the field every day to describe the crime that's going on in your region, right? So it doesn't sound like a big deal, 175 charges. We have thousands of charge codes that we use every day in the field, but it actually is, and it's really impacting our data. We're losing valuable data, context, and accuracy about the types of crimes occurring in our region because of this. And this is why ARGIS wants to be here as one unifying voice for all of the law enforcement agencies in the region to kind of push back on this issue. But for those of you who are not familiar with how a crime report is taken or what that looks like, I want to explain a little bit more on the next slide. So there are officers in the field taking crime reports every day. When an officer is in the field, they are entering all of the information about a crime report into what's called a records management system, or an RMS. Think about it like an electronic index card that gathers up all the pieces of information on a crime report. One of the most important pieces of information they are gathering is the type of crime that's occurring, right? And that's described by a statute or charge code. So, for example, PC 25850 subsection C1 is the crime of carrying a loaded firearm with a prior felony conviction. So that's a pretty serious crime, right? So how that data flows is the officer enters it into the RMS, it automatically flows over to ARGIS, and it also flows over to the district attorney, and then that crime is charged in court. And then on the ARGIS side, we take that crime, clean it up, validate all the data, and report it up to the state for CYBERS reporting, and then the state forwards that on to the feds for NIBRS reporting. So basically what the state is asking us to do, the master charge table team, is they're saying this charge 25850 subsection C1 is no longer a valid charge. Can't use that in the field anymore. Instead, they want us to just remap the charge to PC 25850 subsection A, which is carrying a loaded firearm in a public place. That's a pretty different crime, and it's also leaving out some specificity that would be useful to the DA that's processing that crime, right? So also, the points of concern here for ARGIS is that we are regional data custodians of crime data. So our job in the region is to gather, as much specific data around the crimes that are occurring and maintain that data accurately. And essentially what the state is asking us to do is to remap to charges that are not being reported to us. So that's an uncomfortable role for us. It's not something that we've typically done in the past. And I think it also raises questions about data transparency. So I want to also just pivot over back to the cybers issue. Additionally, our cybers rate, as I mentioned, has always been below 1% or 2% in 2024 when we switched over to cybers. So, and what that means is we send a crime up to the state and they say, okay, looks good. We're going to send it on to the feds now. All the pieces are in the right place. What's happening now is our error rate is now at a almost 14%, which means that the state is just not getting 14% of our crime. They're not adding it into their regional picture of crime that's going on in San Diego. So that's a concern for us that these charge codes could be sort of left out. Obviously, we are still retaining that data. We still have all of that crime data. It's just the state doesn't have that and they can't accept it into their system with these charges not being considered valid. I also just want to highlight here that these charges and statutes are still real California laws. They still exist, but they're just not able to be accessed or charged by our officers in the region. So I also was curious how much of our data this impacts. So we did an analysis within ARGIS and we looked at all of the charges on all of our crime cases from 2019 to 2025. And it turns out it's about 10% of our data that the state is asking us not to report, about 10% of our charges. So that's a lot of data for us. And this is why we're concerned if it's this much data now, how many more charges will be repealed administratively in the future? And how could this impact what we're able to report up to the state in the future as well? So the big implications for this are obviously that loss of data that we've been talking about and specificity in the crimes we're reporting, but it's also potential losses in funding at two different levels. So agencies need to be cybers and NIBRs certified. And in order to hit that certification, you need to be below a certain error rate. It's about 5%. We haven't been decertified yet, but it's certainly a concern that we're keeping an eye on. And when agencies are not cybers and NIBRs certified, they are not eligible to apply to certain grants like JAG grants. Another funding concern for us is community organizations use this crime data to apply for grants and after-school programs and things like that. So if we're missing data from these data sets at the state level or at the federal level, which both have websites where you can download our local data and people are using that, it could impact how crime is looking in the region and in specific parts of our region. We're not sure exactly what that looks like right now because we haven't had any time to run an analysis and it's just not far enough into the process yet. But this is our major concern, right, is that we're not providing the right data in the best picture to all of the places that is needed. So with that, we have gathered together all of these law enforcement agencies that you see here on your screen to work on this issue. We've prepared several memorandums and sent them up to the state level, and we've had a couple meetings with Cal DOJ's Master Charge Table team to talk about this. We're, I would say, not getting a ton of traction at this point at that lower level, so we may need to kind of escalate this to a higher level to get more attention on the issue, because what's going on here is that different groups within Cal DOJ are siloed and they're not speaking with each other, and it's not feeling like a priority for them. So if we can't get the traction that we need by going through staff at Cal DOJ, what we're going to start doing is going to bigger groups, the California District Attorneys Association, the California Police Chiefs Association, and the California State Sheriffs Association all have meetings where we would go and talk about this and give a presentation. And we may be preparing some memorandums from this Public Safety Committee or from our Chiefs and Sheriffs Committee to support those efforts. And Another possible solution that ARGIS can approach, but we're not there yet, is we could possibly end up keeping two sets of records. One set of records that's being sent onward to the state, and then one local set of records for charges that are being sent and processed to the DA. I think that's like more of a temporary solution, because the other part of this that's concerning is our records management vendors. So those technology systems that the police officers put all of their crime reports into, they want to comply with the list of charges that the state is offering, right? That's how they sell a product. That's how they get officers entering information into their systems. What they're going to eventually do is just say, hey, these charges that the state is not recognizing, we're not even going to offer those in the pick list for officers to put into the system. They're not going to be an option. So we want to kind of get out in front of that issue and make sure that our records management system vendors are offering all of the charges that our police officers need to do business in the field. So with that, I'm going to open it up for questions, and I really hope that made sense.
But before we go to questions, I would just like to reiterate, the state is deactivating charges for reporting purposes, but they have not deactivated charges for enforcement purposes. It would take the legislation and the governor to deactivate the charges for enforcement purposes. So what, and obviously you can see why I have Caroline presenting. She's our foremost expert in this here in ARGIS. But the officers are currently charging. The district attorney is prosecuting, in the jails and the prisons are incarcerating people for charges that are active in the state of California. The department portion, the Master Charge Code Table Group is not reporting certain charges. And when we met with them, and they told us the reason is they are trying, and this is a group that's been in existence since 2008. What they want to do is streamline the reporting for the state and not have duplicates. And an example would be a person could break into a car and steal a lot of things. And you could charge the person for vehicle burglary, and you could charge the person for grand theft at the same time because the car was locked. You could charge two charges, but it's really, it's going to be one felony that the person will plead out to or be convicted on. So you're charging two different charges for the same person. They're trying to reduce confusion. Of course, we all follow the same penal code, health and safety code, vehicle code. So it's a difference there, but we've worked with the state. They've offered us a path to work with. They said they would, well, they have a working group, and we have no membership here in Southern California. So they said they would offer this region a member to sit on the committee to work with them. Of course, they also told us the member would have to work for the state goals, not the regional goals. And they've offered us a path, if we want to reinstitute these charges, to please send them the charges we'd like to reinstitute and provide the documentation behind that. And then we'll discuss it, and maybe they'll agree or maybe they won't disagree. But our ultimate goal, for the local law enforcement agencies, the working group that we have, is just we want to report all the crime that occurs. And that is not happening. Carry on. Questions?
That's all I had. Yeah,
Let's
questions.
get to public comments. Cameron, do we have any?
Yes, we have two in-person public comments. Cesar Javier, you'll be followed by Blair Beekman, and we do have one online.
1 hour? Oh, sorry. 1 minute. Thank you for the presentation. This is a tool and process. Good, better, best. Thank you. Value analysis. Lawlessness has strong correlations with illiteracy, poverty, and demographic diversity. Take note of the populated, underserved, economically disadvantaged community, like District 4, District 9, and part of that District 2, Barrio Logan. Whenever we see that white butterfly, we could pinpoint it's either in the territory of Councilor Foster or our district, Councilor Rivera, or District 2 of Councilor Campbell. These are value analysis, sir, within still the topic. Please watch and learn from the hell on wheels. We will learn from it.
Cesar,
I tell
thank you.
you.
Your time has expired. Blair
It's all
Beekman,
about-
please come to the microphone.
Hi, Blair Beekman. These are very delicate matters. It's going to take a lot of parsing and a lot of work. This is generational work you're looking at. There's some good human rights values in what they're doing at this time. There's issues of immigration that are going to go into this efforts that you want to work on. You're at a real fine line with this. Be really careful and really want to practice the human rights that these are young person things that have been developing. I'm 55. I don't really understand what's happening. Neither do you guys. And you guys need help in saying things aren't working well now. I understand that, but realize good people have come up with some good ideas here over time. We have to respect what this is trying to do and work towards that and really respect the immigration rights involved here and how to develop. It could actually be a really good way to develop the future of these programs. Violence creates more violence. Be wary of that. Thank you.
Thank you, Blair. Phone number ending in 731. Go ahead.
You're on, Truth.
Argus handles all crime reporting for 11 of 12 local law enforcement agencies. Who's the other one? The state criminally repealed 175 plus charge codes, 10% of total crimes. We know they did that to fudge the crime numbers and make that evil Prop 47 sound like it was actually a good idea to incentivize theft. With the new training and systems required, did the state provide funding for it? No, right? That would be even more law violated. Inaccurate critical crime data jeopardizing eligibility for federal funding seems to be the state's pro-crime, anti-Trump agenda. It must also mean that sentences for convictions are getting an undeserved lowering. By disrupting the data, the state is coddling criminals and creating victims. Yes to keeping two records, one local because it'll be the only accurate one. The county has no representation on the state's charge table team. Why can SANDAG collectively advocate for housing but not for basic safety? I'm glad Argus has proactively taken the lead, but can public safety bring this to the clueless board? This committee should be dissolved and instead reduced to a 1-minute update at the BOD. That'd be easier on the interpreters as well. Thank you. Have a good day.
Thank you. And that concludes public comment.
Thank you, Cammie. Any member comments? Vice Chair.
Thank you for the presentation. Just a couple of questions. So you're talking about the subcommittee and working group. Who is comprised of that currently?
Our local working group on this is we have a representative from each one of these agencies. The master charge table working group, is that what you're asking?
Yeah, it's the one
Yeah.
through Sacramento.
So we don't know. We've asked, not getting a ton of transparency. That's why we've certainly asked to be a part of it. And I think they've said yes at this point. Initially, we got a no, but now we're getting a yes. So we've already made a little bit of progress there. It seems to be comprised of law enforcement officials, DAs, and then just a smattering of people from Northern California. No real solid representation from Southern California. So that could be another reason why this is happening, is that police academies are run differently in Northern California. They teach different charging practices than we do in Southern California. So again, this is something that would need to be remodeled like from the academy level. And that's why I think some of this is happening.
True. But the fact that they've offered us the opportunity to be on will give us a voice now to be on this committee moving forward.
That's great. And then, but like in these recommendations or with just the fact that they're removing these charge codes, there's not like written drafts explaining why they're removing one from the other? No. Okay. And not even signed off on it?
Not what is published to the public. What is published is just these have been deactivated. We're hoping that as part of the committee that we can get the protocol, the reason, the process that happened that, and then address that so that we can get some of these charges reinstated.
Yeah, I completely agree. And then let's see, under slide 6. So just confirming what you're saying in slide 6. Very cool. So PC 25850C1 is still a crime that we use.
Yes.
Okay. And then, but now we're going to just eliminate it because it doesn't exist in the charge codes. Not saying that we're not going to charge them for the crime, but like it's not being accounted for in the CBERS and for.
So it's still going to be mapped up to the same cybers code, but our concern is that we want, and Argus has not made any moves yet. We are still using subsection C1. We're going to continue to do that until we're expressly told like you cannot. I think where this gets murky is like, how can we maintain maybe both sets of those charges, like one table for the state, one table for us? We may have to do that for a period of time. Whatever, I think come hell or high water, like we want to retain that charge for our DA, for our region, and for our crime statistics, especially because we do so much research in the region with Dr. Rodriguez's group. We're going to maintain that specificity here as long as we can. But yes, in effect, if we were following directions, we would get rid of that C1 charge and just have that A charge.
Do they say like the law enforcement officers that are actually in this, like say subcommittee, what they're gonna do? Because this makes no sense if I was them
No,
justifying.
the answer right now, our question is no. But let me speak to the, if I can just expand this a little bit, 25850 C1, there's also a C2, C3, C4, C5, C6. This section C1 says carrying a loaded firearm with a prior felony conviction. Another would be carrying a loaded firearm and you knew it was stolen. Another would be carrying a loaded firearm and you were a gang member who's precluded from having one of these. So there's 6 of these types of charges. And if you go back to slide 5, they would say just charge carrying a loaded firearm. I mean, the A section. I don't have the A section on there. That was my mistake. So what they're doing is they're removing the ability in the reporting, like in the charging, the charges are viable and people can use those. But in reporting, when you do analysis on these charges, you lose the knowledge that one person had a loaded firearm and he knew it was stolen. One person had a loaded firearm and he was a gang member who shouldn't have that. One person had a loaded firearm for all these different reasons. So the ability to analyze that information will go away if you only use the data that's reported in there. We could ask on the, for example, 2615, which would be sexual assault, rape of a minor, is a charge that's not there anymore. So the alternate would be just use 261. 261 and 261 have different types of crimes. In essence, if you didn't report 2615, you would never be able to tell in your analysis that there was ever anybody under 18 years old that was raped, because that by the charge, you'd have to deeply go into the document and read the narratives and et cetera. There's, I think, 28 different forms of 488, which is a petty theft, 28, I believe, different types. Petty theft for the prior, petty theft for this, petty theft for that. We're going to eliminate that for reporting purposes and move that all into 484. So there will be no analysis in the future on the different types of petty theft that were in there. So we're not just not reporting everything that's happening, but the ability to go into that data and look at trends and different actions will be gone if you only use that state data right now. So that's why we're going to keep the local data. So regionally, we can continue to do the job we have. But that's one of the effects of this issue.
And then on the other side of it though too, so like in fire we use CFIRS, NFIRS, and it's probably the similar technology or data entry, right? We're just like coding everything we can about what an incident took place. And you were mentioning that it was like the grand theft auto, there may be 2 crimes and you kind of go off of one as opposed to the other? Or do you add it like how we do it in CFIRS, where there's like a primary aspect of like, let's say the fire, and then secondary issues that we.
I think that happens between the supervisor of the officer that wrote the report and the district attorney's office, because what the officer charges may not be what the district attorney charges. Normally what happens is you try to find out what's the primary charge, and would these other 2, 3, or 4 charges be lesser included offenses within that one primary charge. The motivated officer might find 15 different charges because he's motivated and we're just going to write as much stuff as we can. Or they may be trying to do the right thing and adding 2 or 3 different charges. But between the field officer supervisor, the sheriff's police department's records management team, and the district attorney, that will often be cleared out, streamlined, and you'll have the primary charge that really is the primary charge for all the offenses that occurred. But the state is trying to make it so that we don't have those type of duplicates potentially. I understand the reason for that. Just in this last year with 172, 175 charges, it's affecting what's happening out there right now.
So that's a real issue, but then by doing this, this is also just throwing a wrench into the gears. Okay, slide 7, if you don't mind popping that up real quick. So because of this, if we were to continue and all of a sudden we have like 13% or whatnot, or even an increase of this, will this actually accidentally show that we are in this county or whatnot having a reduction of crime because we're not even reporting it?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah. So it'll look like
It'll look
our
like a
crime
win?
has just gone down if you were to download the state data set or the federal data set. We also have a local data set here that we keep on our SANDAG open data portal. So we give all of our NIBRs and CYBRs data there, and including the incidents that have been rejected. So that data set will look correct, our local one. And that's why we provide that to the public on our open data portal, because we want people to get the fullest picture of crime in their community possible. But also, a lot of people are not going to know about our open data portal or use that in other places. So yes, at the state level, it will look like crime is decreasing here.
Okay. And then I just needed statements and comments, just like I think the dual record is not an actual solution for us down here in this region. There should be no reason for this type of redundancy. And then do we, like, I would be in support of you advocating, but the question is, like, do we as a capacity here have opportunities to advocate it if that's the direction we wanted to go, or the board of directors of SANDAG?
If I may answer, I believe we do, but we're going to give the state a chance to work through the avenue they've opened for us by letting us put somebody on their committee that looks at these charge codes, and then by allowing us to request charges be added back in with the justification. And if we can work through the process that they have set up, then we'll be successful. If not, then we would ask. We'll come back to you and ask for support. Because the chiefs already are on board, the chiefs of police and the sheriff, in terms of we've presented to the chiefs, and they want all the crime to be reported in the region for all the reasons that it's necessary. But we would ask them, we would ask the region, we would truly like to represent the entire region, not just Sworn, but the cities, because there's 18 cities in the county that are represented here in SANDAG, to support us with our next level of attempts with the state if these other issues don't work or these other avenues don't work.
Great. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Any other member comments? Yes, Councilmember.
Thank you. I'm having trouble understanding this error rate for 14%. And thank you, Ms. Stevens. You did a very good job of presenting this information. It's the first that I'm hearing it, and I was able to capture, I feel like I captured most of it. However, for this error rate, what it says here is round up 14% due to repealed charges being rejected by the team. So you're saying 14% isn't being recorded, but I thought that you're saying the firearms charge, for example, is being reported as that top category versus the specific piece of it, differentiates it from something else related to firearm. So it is being reported just at a higher level.
It's confusing. So we are reporting it under the more specific charge. And because we haven't remapped to that less specific charge, sorry, going the wrong way, their interface is rejecting it. So they're saying, okay, we're looking for the 25850 subsection A. We don't see it, rejection, because we have that C1 still on there. So it has to, it's a pretty stringent system when you're sending data to cybers. Every piece of the data has to match like an allowable data set that they have on their side, if that makes sense.
It does.
So they're getting the incident, they're just not able to like ingest it into their system, if that makes sense, because the charge is not recognized as a statistically reportable charge.
Right. Thank you. Yes, that does. So truly, we are not capturing that 14%.
The state is not. We still have it here locally. Yes.
The state is not. Okay, so this is deeply troubling. I'm glad that you're bringing this to this board and this attention. And I imagine there's consensus around here for anything that we can do to be supportive in that effort. The other question I had is, perhaps this is an unintended consequence, right? Whenever there's changes. And I think I saw that this change began in 2024. So now we're in the middle of 25 and we're seeing how, what is the result of the change. So far, that one example is we're underreporting 14%. And sadly, it may appear as if we are, our crime statistics may appear as if they're getting better. but that's an error in the, looking at the data. So what I wanted to mention was, there must have been a great error in the, by the state in the duplication. And that is the cause for why, streamlining some of these things. And I'm interested to see how bad was the error in duplication that the state went ahead and removed these almost 200 charges, but now it's causing this problem.
I believe there's been a great error, but in 2008, I understand the reason why this committee came together, and their focus was to streamline charges so that we wouldn't have different counties charging different laws for the same type of crime, and we didn't have duplicates that meant the same thing. We've just noticed that there's been a massive change. 172 charges, a lot of charges to be deactivated within 1 year. Normally, when a charge is deactivated, the legislature will vote it down, or will vote to deactivate a charge. The governor will sign off on this is no longer a law, and then there'll be a notification to all the law enforcement agencies that this is no longer law, and then the DA, the jails, the courts, the law enforcement agencies will all be notified, and nobody will use that law. In this instance, this just deals with reporting of crime and not the enforcement of crime. So we're going to be on the committee now. I will give you a report in 2 or 3 months. I don't think the committee meets every week, but we'll certainly do follow up on the progress we have there. But it is concerning for us that we're not reporting everything. And the whole focus of creating the National Incident-Based Reporting System, which then for California is a California Incident-Based Reporting System, was to show, and the common word is more granularity, show more detail in terms of what's happening, and not just the 7 types of crimes that we reported during the former UCR, the Uniform Crime Reporting System we had. We moved from that, which the FBI used for years and years and years and years and years and decades, to this new system, NIBRS and CYBRS, so that people could find out what is really happening. And we are locally trying to capture that, but the state is not capturing everything that we're capturing. So we're trying to work within the state for success, and we'll come back to you if we fail in that area and then ask for support in some new initiatives.
Just for clarification, I know from last year, this is kind of being driven by the feds looking for commonality because the different states have different reporting criteria. So trying to find something that threads through all 50. And the rejection rate is not a rejection of the case. It's a coding issue. It's not being coded correctly the way the state wants it to come up, which is in a very general section, not as granular as we like, because that granular detail is how we determine maybe a particular type of crime or a particular type of crime committed by a particular subject who prefers to do blank as opposed to a general crime, the loaded firearm in public, as instead of somebody like the gang member that you mentioned. That gets us to a certain person or a certain type of event or a date, where this one is going to require to pull all that data and have a mechanism to search absent a secondary database, which I suppose we could, but it seems to fly in the face of common sense. If that's what we're going to do, then why don't we send our information up there and let, and I say there, Sacramento, let them code it all in general terms?
I think what the state is doing, since we send the data that actually goes up, is they're just saying it's wrong and you fix it.
Yeah, so it's not a rejection rate. It's rejecting the way you're coding the data you're sending us. Fix it, send it back.
We're sending up the actual events that occur in the region, and what they do not add into their system, they're saying that is an error.
And they have the final say.
Yes, it's their system.
Okay. Any other member comments? No frustrations, I'm sure. Vice Chair, did you have something? I'm sorry. Okay. Well, as a reminder, there was no meeting in August. Our next, yeah, okay, so you did want to add it? Okay, 1 second.
Just a quick one. It's either because I'm new or just because of some policies that are changing right now. It just seems to be a sense of frustration between constituents and myself, just trying to interpret the difference between what's taking place on a federal law enforcement level and that in the local level. And I know that there's only so much that this body can do, but it is a body in which represents a lot of this. So I was just seeing if in one of the next very future agenda items that we can add in what SB 54 is and just how that delineates what we're doing in a local level and that what we're doing in a federal level.
Certainly, we'll put that on the agenda for the next meeting that we have.
Okay, thank you.
So that would be the September 19th meeting at 1 o'clock, this building. If there are no further comments, we are adjourned. And it is 14:59.